Let's talk about displayed authority, which is the process of conveying your authority not by yourself, but by third parties, which reduces any bias from what they're saying and makes you seem more legitimate and more unbiased when talking about your accomplishments and your credentials. There are a myriad ways to do this, so let's take a look.
As we've seen so far, authority is excellent to disengage critical thinking in the other person and convince them to lower their guard and put themselves in your hands. The problem here is that when you're the one talking about your own achievements and accolades, you run the risk of sounding arrogant, conceited, or both. The best way to convey authority is through third parties, people, objects, or others. By doing this, you legitimize your authority. Most people doubt someone talking about their own achievements, but it's harder to criticize someone that's talking about somebody else's authority. This gives you the chance to have an unbiased source for your achievements and credibility. There are four usual methods for displaying authority, ranked in order of frequency, but not necessarily importance. The most frequent one is having another person introduce you and or sing your praises. When somebody else is talking about your experience, it's much easier for someone to believe it than if you are the one mentioning yourself. This is the reason why we have people introduce speakers on stage. If the speakers introduce themselves with all of their credentials, they could sound biased or arrogant, but if a third party does it, suddenly it seems legit. The second most frequent form is objects, having diplomas, credentials, prizes, trophies on your office wall or just around the office in plain sight. These objects speak for themselves, conveying authority without you having to speak a word. The third type is associations with people and or institutions of value. For example, if you have two professionals who have the exact same experience, just knowing that one of them went to an Ivy League school or is part of a Rotary or Toastmasters club and the other wasn't, can immediately boost the image of the first one compared to the second one. Finally, your clothing can be a symbol of displayed authority in many cases. There are some stereotypes that can be leveraged. For example, expensive suits for successful lawyers or people in high finance, and the proverbial white lab coat for doctors. The white lab coat in particular is such a symbol that it creates instant authority in a person, and nowadays is frequently mimicked by other professions. When you're displaying authority, what are some do's and don'ts? Do leverage everything that you can. Dress up, have testimonials, credentials, diplomas, awards, and get somebody to introduce you. Make the best use of every resource you have. Don'ts. Don't be incongruent. Especially if you have a lot of credentials and authority, you'll have to behave accordingly and charge accordingly. I see many specialists who are too genteel or too humble despite their authority, and people don't trust them because they don't act like the value they have.
So, as we just covered, there are many different ways for your authority to be displayed without you being the one to have to do it. If you rely on a third party, whether an object, a piece of clothing, another person, an association, you are going to benefit from the fact that the person thinks that this is unbiased and it's legitimate, because it's not you who's singing your own praises, it's somebody else talking about you. This can really boost your authority and make you seem more legitimate.